Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host, Shireen for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
All right, welcome, Shireen here. I am your virtual boutique bookkeeper and QuickBooks advisor. Benefits of having both a bookkeeping and CPA firm. It eliminates conflict of interest. While both firms should have your best interest in mind, the key is to keep a separation of duties to avoid a conflict of interest. If the same firm handles bookkeeping and tax matters, there is less independence and there is a risk that the benefits provided through an informal or formal audit are diminished. If you only have a CPA, let's chat. SBS, experience the difference. So if you want to know more, go check me out at www.shireensbookkeeping.com and allow me to keep your books clean so you don't have to. Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Friends from Wild Places with myself, Shireen, and my amazing co-host, Tanya. Tanya, would you mind telling our listeners a little bit more about our extra content we are making just for our subscribers?
Yes, most definitely, Shireen. So at Friends from Wild Places, we have bonus content, which is where Shireen and I go a little deeper and little like a deep dive into subjects that we just kind of like raw data and just kind of speak from our hearts. So if you are interested in hearing that, for as little as $5 a month, you too can be part of this. If there's any subject that you would like us to dive deeper on that you have an interest in, you can always let us know. Be happy to share our opinions. So back to you, Shireen.
Thank you so much, Tanya. That's $5, listeners. I mean, that's really nothing, and it gets to all the juicy stuff that a lot of us as business owners, entrepreneurs, or even just women struggle with on a daily basis. So it's quite fun. But yes, let's get straight into our visitor. Today, we are joined by Estrella Quiroz. Am I saying that correctly? Because I don't want to absolutely kill your last name.
No, you're fine.
Is that correct?
It's like Key and Rose. So Key Rose.
Quiroz. Okay, well, we're so happy to have you here, Estrella. Estrella is co-founder of Last Farewells. Estrella is not only the co-founder and CEO of Last Farewells, an end-of-life planning platform that helps people create and schedule last letters, videos, and a personalized memorial page that will get delivered to their loved ones after their passing. Their mission is to fill the emotional gap in end-of-life planning and ensure no words are left unspoken. Estrella was inspired to be on this journey with Last Farewells all due to a voicemail her own dad left behind before passing. Currently, they're backed by a strong online presence with over 33,000 organic followers and over 23 million organic followers on Instagram, showcasing how strong a last message can be. Welcome, Estrella. It's so great to have you on the show with us today.
Thank you so much. And then it's views. We don't have 23 million followers yet, but that's on the manifestation board.
Nice.
So
well, we're manifesting.
Maybe next year I get. Yeah.
We love that. We'll be manifesting with you. So, listeners, you know that normally we do a little bit of an icebreaker. Tanya and I are absolute crime enthusiasts. So a lot of the true crime that we watch on Law and Network on YouTube, we like to pick a case that's really intriguing to us and just chat quickly about it. So first up, the question that I'm going to ask all of us is, do you think cranking down on the immigration policy will help prevent cases like these? So I'm talking about the Lakin Riley murder case. I'm not too sure if any of you listeners are familiar with it, but let me get into it. So Miss Riley, who was only 22, was attacked in February while running on a trail on the University of Georgia campus in Athens. A day later, the authorities charged Jose Antonio Ibarra, a migrant who had entered the country illegally in connection with the killing. He was actually found guilty. The case became a flashpoint in the bitter national debate over immigration policy. He was an undocumented immigrant. So just knowing the little bits of detail there, let's just discuss that question. Do you think cranking down on the immigration policy will even help in such cases like these? Again, safe space. We're just going to touch on what we feel about the topic, and then we'll move on. So as our guest, Estrella, you can go first.
Yeah, of course. Well, I thank you for well, I knew about this case, but now I know more details about the case. So thank you for the information beforehand. Well, I'm a daughter of immigrants, so I'm in an interesting I have an interesting perspective because my dad illegally crossed the border from Nicaragua through Mexico to Texas and brought along all of our family. And had he not done that, I would not be here building Last Farewells. All simultaneously, I'm also a girl who goes running in the mornings alone. And based off everything that she had done it right, right? Her friends had her notification. She went on the university trail. It's one of those things where in my position, I'm almost like flabbergasted. But to be honest, I don't know if cracking down on immigration it will directly mean that less of these cases would happen because these things are already happening all over the country. And as the video recap that you had introduced me said, like, are people just kind of using it for their own political agenda? Because now it's just easy to blame, oh, he's an immigrant, immigrants are doing this, we need to make policy rather than thinking about all of the other aspects that could potentially, help people in the future not do this, which is access to more mental health, access to therapy, making things more accessible when people need help, which would then be more preventative rather than just trying to, oh, no immigrants allowed, because then you're also eliminating the potential of people like me in the future who could be building things that would eventually help the US or help many other people around the world. So I would say that's my perspective. I don't believe cracking down on immigration is necessarily going to be the direct solution to preventing things like this. There's still like so much education, especially for men, just to be more aware of their emotions and before beyond like what can we do to even stop, not even stop, but like help prevent these actions when people are feeling. I don't know what caused Jose to do this, and obviously not justifying anything he did. But what I guess I almost like kind of want to rewind back and be like, what happened in their childhood, or where did these learnings come from, and how can we implement a better system in our education to get people more in tune with their thoughts before they create any other actions like this.
Right, right. Tanya, what do you think?
So it's interesting because and Estrella, thank you so much for sharing. It was very interesting hearing because you're a runner, child, of somebody that it was an immigrant. So it's very interesting hearing your perspective. My perspective is, so my background is actually in criminal justice, right? And criminal justice system, specifically here in the United States, is multifaceted as far as incarceration. So I think in here, it has become a very politicized topic with this specific case, especially it was, around the time of elections here in the United States. So having a blanket statement to say cracking down on immigration is going to reduce these type of crimes, I don't think is an accurate. I think that's a very one-dimensional viewpoint. So from my perspective, what I see is when somebody is found guilty and they are not a US citizen, then it becomes another couple of layers that they have to go through to get prosecuted. So I think the conversation objectively looking at it, and everyone knows that listens to this podcast, I am not political, so I'm not politically charged at all on this topic.
Right.
I'm very objective. However, I do see how people get very emotional, politicized right? Not so much from the criminal justice system. So I think the conversation is just bigger than a blanket question of, if we crack down on immigration, would that reduce the crimes, right? So I think that's a bigger, much larger conversation. So how about you, Shireen? What's your take?
Well, I mean, a little bit about me. I'm a South African white woman in South Africa. And so I go running, I do a lot of backpacking. I'm very much in the mountains. And so I need to keep my stamina up. And for me to do that for training purposes, I like to go running. And so it's never safe to do that by yourself. You try and find places to go running that are the safest area, but unfortunately, there are just bad people in the world, and you can't narrow it down to race, to, where you come from. It can't be narrowed down to something so silly and minor in my books, in the way I feel, because anybody could be that person. My next door neighbor could go and try and rape me and kidnap me. And I would never know, because we don't befriend our neighbors here. So everyone's just strangers. But you get my point. It has nothing to do about where you've come from, what color you are, what your belief system is. There are always bad people, and they could be your the next door neighbor. Unfortunately, in this circumstance, it ended up being a gentleman that was here, in the US illegally. And unfortunately, that I feel like that's just a piece of a detail in the bigger and broader story. And I think people have just jumped on the bandwagon and made it a political thing, to fuel the stricter immigration policy that I think Trump or somebody's trying to put up. But yeah, that's what I think. But interesting case all round, though. But let's move on to our quote of the day, if you guys are ready for it. Our quote is from Estrella. She said she's going to tell us who actually quoted it, but she gave us the quote of the day, saying, "We all have two lives. The second one starts when you realize you only have one," right? That's such a good one, Estrella. So why don't you go ahead and tell us who actually made this quote, said this quote, and what does it mean to you specifically?
The first time I ever saw this quote, it said lemony snicket. And then I think deeper, I want to say confiscute. I can't say his name. But I'll be honest, the first time I ever saw it, I thought for many years, I was like, yeah, Snicket said that. But I think it's a philosopher from way back then. So I'll need to fact check that. But I think it's confisc. I can't say his name. But yeah, when I saw it, it was Lemony Snicket. So, oh, and did you ask, well, why did I choose it?
Yes, like what does it mean to you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've always, it's actually on my last farewell's memorial page that I created. That is the quote I chose. It's something that when the moment I saw it, it was my quote. It's up until I was 18, I was a different version of myself. And I was a straight edge student. I was academically focused. I was like, I'm gonna get my parents go get a job, get a poverty. I was everything, right? In high school. And then the moment my dad passed away, everything changed. I went outside the country for the first time. I went to his funeral in Nicaragua. And that moment, I realized, like, after there's like, I know the biggest moments in my life, there was like before 18 and then like after 18, like before my dad died and after my dad died, I became two completely different people. And so I really resonate with that quote because it says we all have two lives. And the second one starts when you realize you only have one. And I really believe my second life started at my dad's funeral. It just completely changed everything for me. So I think that's an important quote because it's almost around it is around mortality. It's just realizing that life is short. And then once you realize life is short, you start acting differently, you start moving differently and doing things differently.
For sure. That's so interesting, Australia. And I can't believe you lost your, what, were you 18 when you lost your father?
Yeah.
That's real young, hey? That's real young to lose your father. You
Yeah.
seem kind of
Yeah.
big
He had been
that.
deported 2 years before. So as on the topic of immigration, if anything, it causes more trauma for the people left behind here.
Right.
But he was deported when I was 17, and the last time I saw him, I was 16. But I remember he was already in the prison, getting ready to be deported. So my last memory of him, the
Mm.
last hug I gave him was in a prison. And
Well,
you don't think it's the last hugs. You don't ever think it's the last. You're just like,
mm,
oh yeah, well, I'll go visit my dad. I did end up getting my passport because of that. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go eventually to Nicaragua and visit my dad. But you think you have more time. But you don't make, I didn't make the time because I was in high school. I was so in, no, no, I'm in this in class, I'll go later. And later it never came. So I was never able to actually see him alive in Nicaragua.
mm.
Wow,
Well,
what a heartfelt story, Estrella. What a just an amazing, just truly it just captures, my heart even listening to your story.
right.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely I was just reflecting yesterday. I'm actually supposed to be in London right now, but I realized there's some moments for stillness and peace needed. And I just reflected, and I literally wrote yesterday that sometimes I really, though you don't feel it in the moment, it's so nice to appreciate to have the lows, because then when you experience the highs of life, you have something to compare it to, and you're like, oh my gosh, do you remember when I was X this, or when I was in my dad's funeral and was holding his hand and I was crying, and now I'm here and I feel so much gratitude and peace. So if anything, I was grateful for the lows because it's built mental resilience, but it's also just allowed me to live life more beautifully and more in color.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Well, since we're on the topic, Australia, why don't you give us a little background of the events leading up to you actually founding Last Farewells?
I love the magic. I love the universe. I love all the serendipity that has gone into Last Farewells. It's definitely it wasn't a linear road. I never in my life thought I'd be an entrepreneur. But it all really did start with my dad's funeral. He was deported. My class raised money. That helped me go to Nicaragua for his funeral, and I was the only sibling. I'm one of seven. I was the only one that was able to go because of money. So I had to navigate my dad's funeral alone, alongside my uncles and aunts, and it was just a really, really hard time. But it really did open my eyes to the fragility of life. I wrote myself a letter right after his funeral, and it was like, Estrella, you gotta change. You gotta make time for more people. You gotta take time to be slow, right? And so, um, I also met my family in Nicaragua, and I absolutely fell in love with the country. So now I go back often. But that inspired something in me. When I saw Nicaragua, it was the first time I ever left the country. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a way to travel the world. And I was just about to go to university. I got a full ride. And the first thing I did was sign up for a study abroad program. I was like, I don't care if I have to take out loans. I'm going to get a credit card. I don't care. I'm going to go. And I did. And I went to study in Italy. And instead of coming back after the program ended, I stayed a couple months backpacking. So I went on this backpacking tour. And that inspired me so much. I went alone, and I came back and changed my major to tourism. And because I changed my major to tourism, I was able to use more student loans, more credit cards, more scholarships to study abroad in university. So by the time I graduated, I had gone from seeing just one country, Nicaragua, to seeing 40 countries. And I used that to apply to this company called Goabroad.com as an intern. They really liked my application. They created an internship position for me to do it full time. And that's how I met my CEO Troy. I met him there, and he's actually the one who invited me to be the co-founder of Blast for Wells years later. So he went from being my CEO to now saying, "Hey, Estrella, I know you have your dad's." Well, I'll talk about the voicemail later, but he's like, "I know your story, and I think you'd be the perfect person to reignite Blast for Wells." They had tried to do it many years prior, but he just wanted someone with passion in a story. So yeah, I would say in short summary, my dad's funeral kickstarted me to like, I'm gonna major in travel the world and go see everything. Major in tourism, and then that connected me to my CEO, who now has invited me to become the co-founder of Blast Farewells. And when he invited me, I was like, "Am I gonna work in the end of life planning industry?" I was like, "What do you mean? I majored in tourism. Like, I was working in luxury travel and nonprofit travel. Like, that doesn't make sense." And then it made sense to me when I thought about the quote, when I thought how death has impacted my life, how like thinking about my own death has invited me to, reflect on my daily actions, the people I surround myself with, the adventures I choose to go on. And oh my gosh, it just all made sense. I was like, if more people think about the end of their life, or if I can help more people create last farewells, then people are gonna, when they're grieving, they're gonna also reflect on their own life decisions. Are they in the jobs that they want to be in? Are they around the people they want to be in? Are they doing their bucket list items? Are they saying, like, are they doing the things that they want to do? So yeah, it all just made sense to me. I was like, wow, God, the universe, everything has led me up to this point in the past 10 years, to be co-founding Lost Farewells at this very moment.
I got goosebumps just you sharing that story about the yeah, it's you could tell it's the like genuine truth, like inspirational truth that you are speaking. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Should we jump in and ask you to tell us more about what is Last Farewells?
Yeah. Yeah, so Last Farewells is an end of life planning platform that helps you create your last messages and a memorial page that will get delivered after your passing. So you can create last letters, last videos, last audio messages, and you can schedule them upon your death, for a specific day or for a special milestone. And the memorial page, I kind of like to say it's kind of like MySpace and Facebook, but you take control of your story after. I don't know if I'm sure many of you have seen many obituaries that are like, she likes running and she is a light and she has these many surviving members. And there's just so much more to that person than what's being written after. And granted, families are grieving. They don't have time and headspace to really reflect on one's life at that very moment. So they
Wow.
create this very generic obituary. So this memorial page is you preparing that almost as a gift for your loved one so they don't have to stress it. Oh, this is a photo she wanted to choose. These are the words she wanted to say. There's a last music playlist. So it's kind of like almost like fun for yourself and reflecting on your life, but also something that's going to be very useful to the people you love after. So I like to say we're filling the emotional gap in end of life planning, because in end of life planning, from what I've seen, it's mostly wills, estates, trust, or the financial component. And I think a lot of people fail to realize the importance of just how strong of an impact words can have. And I'll go into my story with why I'm co-founding this. So right 3 days before my dad passed away, he died on 11/11. My birthday was 11/8, November 8th, and he called me 3 times. I was mad at him for something else. So I declined. I vividly remember decline, decline, decline.
Mm.
And because of that, he left 3 voicemails. And in 2 of them, he sings me happy birthday. And then the third one, he tells me that he hopes a million angels look after me and that he loves me and that things are going to change. He promises and bye. And he didn't know he was going to pass away. So the moment he died, the first thing I went was to go look at my calls. I looked at my voicemails and I found them and I started bawling in the car. And having that voicemail and just having him tell me that he loves me, even though I was mad at him at the time, it was so reassuring. It helped me so much with my own grief. And I do believe that those words, my dad died dirt poor. He had holes in his shirts. He had literally nothing, nothing in his pocket. I have nothing from him. But these words that he left were so meaningful to me. And it just goes to show that so many people have gifts that they don't even realize that they have. And especially like, end of life planning can be expensive. It can be tedious. There's a lack of education, especially for Black and minorities. So I want to kind of shift that narrative with Last Farewells by helping people see that their words are going to be so much more impactful than they could ever realize. And I'm proof of that. I've had something for the past 10 years that I still reuse. Last month, I threw this sunrise birthday party. 70 people came at sunrise. I got mariachis. I got a DJ. And I played my dad's voicemail message where he's singing me happy birthday. I shared it with everyone.
Mm.
And it was the best epic celebration, but a gift that he created unknowingly 11 years ago that I still enjoy every birthday. It's so simple. And so yeah, the concept of last farewells is it's farewells that are going to help your loved ones with their grief, but also hopefully give you a peace of mind when you're in the process of creating it. So that's kind of the long story of what Last Farewells is. I'll stop there.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love that concept. I absolutely love it. I love it. I think it's very special. I think there's always, when your loved ones pass away, I think we always walk away thinking, oh, there's so much left unsaid. Even from their side, leaving this world, I'm sure, I mean, I wouldn't know, I've never been on my deathbed, but I can only imagine how it might be scary at some points, depending on where you are. And I'm sure there's lots that they want to say to their loved ones that are all going to be left behind. So I feel that's so special. And I've never heard of anyone else doing it. So this is the first company and business I've heard doing this. So Estrella, I think you're doing an amazing, amazing job.
Tune in next week for part 2 from Friends from Wild Places.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Bueta. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.